Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the High Existence Podcast. I am your host, John Brooks, and today we're going to be speaking to Jonathon Weisberger, a very interesting man born in California but raised from a young age in Ecuador. For over 15 years, Jonathon has been leading avid adventurers into remote regions of Ecuador, Peru, and Costa Rica to rediscover nature's beauty and intelligence. Between 1990 and 2000, Jonathon lived and collaborated with 5 distinct indigenous tribes in the Upper Amazon, including the Secoya tribe, from whom he learned to cook the sacred plant medicine yahe. Yahe shares many similarities to ayahuasca. Jonathon is a true master of plants and takes the traditions of these ceremonies incredibly seriously. Martin and I recorded this interview with Jonathon in his lodge, which is in the middle of the Costa Rican jungle, so there is some background noise, but we thought that this noise of the birds gave it more of an authentic feel. On a side note, Apotheosis was an incredible success, and we have more retreats organized for later this year and next year. If you're interested in radically leveling up your existence, partaking in plant medicine ceremonies, attending awakening workshops, and much more, visit apotheosisretreat.com. Our next retreat will be in the Netherlands, and the following one after that will be back in Costa Rica. The interview is one of our best. Jonathon is an incredible speaker and storyteller. In this episode, we cover such topics as shamanism versus shamanic practices, animism, the role of yahe drinking on both individual and generational trauma healing, the traps of ayahuasca drinking, Jonathon's time with the Secoya tribe, the existence of hell, how to live a life of integrity, and much, much more. So, without further ado, turn on your brain and let's dive in. Jonathon Weisberger. So, Jonathon, you have spent a lot of time with the Secoya tribe and have lots of experience as an ethnobotanist. I was wondering what your views are on modern day shamanism, and if you see any traps or ways that shamanism is being misrepresented.
Yeah, well, I can just speak from a little bit of experience I have, because I'm not that skilled at these topics either. But from what I see, it's a very wide, very vast, ample theme of conversation. But from experiencing how life is amongst indigenous people, I think there's 2 different things. There's shamanic practices and being a shaman, right? Like shamanic practices, I see that a lot of people are taking to heart and using as forms of rituals so they can feel more connected and find some kind of identity, and to help catalyze healing processes, psychosomatic healing processes, shamanic practices. I think there's lots of shamanic practices: drumming, prayers, invocations, baths, ceremonial baths, incense, that people are learning, that come from indigenous cultures, many of them modified because these change as they adapt to new circumstances. And so people are finding shamanic practices as therapies for catalyzing personal and community wellness. So that's very interesting. A shaman, on the other hand, is someone who can choose the moment of their death. So it's a big difference. And the shamans are few. People who practice shamanic practices are many, but the shamans are few. A shaman usually won't say that they're shaman, because the true shamans know too there's no beginning or end. And they're shamans because they're humble. They've broken through the cortex of the ego, so they can be channels for the spirit, mediums, true mediums for the for the spirits. And there's many different shamanic traditions and different types of initiation processes and passage, rites of passage that people go through, trainings that are very fascinating as part of the cultural heritage of humanity. This is a very important treasures of the cultural heritage of humanity. Why? Because today, basically, the corporate paradigm that's gripping the planet has somehow fooled people into thinking that we're always supposed to feel fine. And that's like the whole corporate thing is like that image that everything is always going to be 24/7 work seamlessly, like that's how it is in heaven, what I mean? Like the heavenly realms are like that, but this is also the earthly realm. This is bound by time and space. And this is where this is like a cauldron for the purification of the soul. We come to the earth to learn. And oftentimes learning is through suffering. That's why some of the shamanic practices, for example, methods of learning to be shamans the shaman is a word that comes from from what I understand is Siberia, where they would go into a trance beating the drum. And so, but each culture has different words, like in the Amazon, Paye or Yachak amongst the Quichuas means person of wisdom, sage, or Yahin Kuku amongst the Sequoia means basically the Yahe drinker. So like, there's no actual word for shaman in Sequoia outside of Yahe Kuku. If you drink Yahe, the Yahe drinker. And so it makes it very practical because shaman can be like, also nowadays, like, you say the word shaman and one guy could be like, women could throw themselves to his feet. Another guy could say, this guy's got to be persecuted. It's going to invoke a lot of different responses, But it's cool, like in the Sequoia culture, Yahin Kuku. And maybe shaman in the context of the Siberian, healer, spiritual guides where that word comes from has its own much different connotation in situ than it does now, right? And then so each tribe is different. Paye is a beautiful word in Colombian Amazon amongst the Tucanos. They call them Paye. It's like namaste, the equivalent of namaste, like living to our highest potential. The Sequoia, another word, inti baike. Paye, inti baike or paye, which means like, and the Sequoias too, called like amongst the Yahin Kuku, the best ones that are most devoted to community service, the flawless ones that are perfect. They call them inti paike, which like they shine like the sun. Basically the representative of an uncorrupting way of being. And so, and that it goes down to it, what it boils down to really, there's one thing that defines a shaman, and that is that the shaman can choose the moment of their death. And that's when you go like, wait a second, okay, you have to be sincere with yourself. You can still successfully shamanic practices and not be a shaman, basically, you see what I'm saying? It kind of goes to the thing of like, that spiritually, from the traditions of Tao, I always like to use the traditions of Tao as kind of like a fail-safe sort of method because to understand all the world cultures and traditions, the traditions of Tao has a canon of sacred literature that goes back so many thousands of years. So there's such a pure reflection of that ancient pure mind, but documented in the best ability that they could, And so there's so much to refer to. And truly, I find that the traditions of Tao are a fail-safe vantage point to study, to understand, and better elucidate the different kinds of spiritual cultures and practices the world over, right? So there's a beautiful saying from the traditions of Tao that says that a spiritually achieved person is always a moral person. But a moral person might not necessarily be a spiritually achieved person. That goes to your answer. Like, basically, like, not everyone's, far and few, one in thousands are going to be shaman, but many people can successfully accomplish shamanic practices that have a positive effect on their life and their community's lives.
Mm-hmm. You just mentioned the Sequoia a few times and Yahe drinking.
Yep.
Who are the Sequoia, for people who don't know?
The Sequoia are an ethnic minority that live in Ecuador's northern Ecuadorian Amazon. They're part of the Western Tucanoan language-speaking group, originally from Peru and Ecuador and Colombia, that border region. And they're an ethnic minority. There's maybe 400 in Ecuador and 400 in Peru, so about 800 to 1,000 individuals. And they once had a very precise spiritual science and culture of a university, of a way of life, a celestial university, which is the drinking of Yahe. And that was the everyday, basically, that was the university of the Sequoias. Like, all the Sequoias would get enrolled in the University of Yahe and drink to learn the oral traditions, the culture, and to understand their culture, to also understand the taboos of their culture, and to receive energy, too, as well, so that they could live a life of spiritual alignment, which would allow them to live much easier in the wilderness. It allows them to live easier their way of life, which is to live in the wilderness and have to hunt and fish and grow your own food is a rigorous, challenging thing. The Amazon, no matter, quite diverse, presents lots of challenges too, because there's a lot of diversity, but oftentimes a lot of scarcity. So there's lots of different things, but not that much abundance of one's particular thing. So it's a very challenging way of life to live out there. Brother over here, Martin, has been there and seen with his own 2 eyes and 2 hands. He spent
It's a lot of work.
internship there with them, and you right?
It's a lot, yeah, I lived there for about a month. Probably the hardest living conditions I've ever faced. It wasn't easy at all. I learned a lot. What I like most is their animistic presence, and I know you have that as well, and I really like that about you. So, what is animism to you, or how do you experience the world while drinking ayahuasca?
That's beautiful. The indigenous people, so that's a kind of an overview, this go, but the indigenous people, all indigenous cultures for the most part, especially in the Amazon, are animistic societies, which means that everything is conscious. It's somewhat like the Buddhists in the sense of the sentient beings. Everything has a wisdom to it, has a consciousness to it, has feelings, not just plants and animals, but also non-inanimate objects as well, such as tools, the house, rocks, mountains, and so the animistic worldview recognizes the world as an infinitely diverse fabric of spirits that are, from the most dense to the most sublime. We're kind of in the middle lower, which is like the union of matter and spirit and matter. And then there's other spirits like nature spirits and plant spirits, and there's like starry beings and mountain deities, and there's like immortals from inside the earth and inside the water, and mountain deities like the volcanoes, and then like elementals like of the metals and the wind and the thunder and the lightning, and then there's like divine immortals that transcend time and space, that are like can transcend all the heavens without changing their form, their essence. So they can be in all the heavens, from the most subtle, which is the God and the realms transcendent time and space, the immortal realms, through all the realms of the physical realms, into the realms of the ghosts and demons, the most dense, heavy realms, without changing their essence. So that's the animistic worldview, leaves no stone unturned. And also, the animistic worldview is a unified worldview, and it believes that basically all creation and all existence is part of one unseparated whole. So that there's no difference between the natural and the supernatural phenomena. If you think about it, like corporate culture, like the paradigm at big governments, it suits their needs perfectly to have people be so dualistic. And religions is the way to sort of like to pacify that yearning of like, wait, it can't be just all business as usual. There's got to be some mystery here. Shit happens, people die, we suffer, what the hell's going on? So there's religions come in like, to like pacify people with like rituals, like on that one hand, like we're talking about shamanic practices and rituals, but also from the Taoist and from the very, very deepest perspective, like Chuang Tzu clearly says that rituals are the decadence of the Tao and the beginning of world chaos. And there's a whole part in the teachings of Chuang Tzu, and where Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu heavily cap on Confucius because he was too overly infatuated about like rescuing rituals and traditions, and everyone should rescue their, because it was sort of like if you didn't bow 100 times with one right hand in and the other right hand in like that, and in a very certain way, like you would never open the lock to the divine immortals. But like the Taoist is more like that every posture is sacred, and that only sincerity, unadorned sincerity, invokes a response from heaven. And they had also very advanced, basically what they're called is advanced traditional practices. Those are shamanic practices that no one can ever know unless you're the real deal. Then those are like the sacred wisdom you receive direct from contact with the divine immortals, different powerful spirits. They show you healing techniques that are called advanced spiritual practices that these certain accomplished masters can undergo, and that's like those are the virtues of a shaman, of a true shaman, a spiritual master of sages. That person has certain level, and the dietas that they do, and they undergo their certain devotional, basically the science of the, the dieta is the science. There's many different kinds of dietas of And so many different types of dietas. Each tradition, and there's many ones from different traditions. But the dieta is the juxta, is like the pillar, the stepping stone of the process.
So what, a dieta?
The dieta.
Do you mean like a specific diet that people take? What does it mean to you, dieta?
I think it's a form of asceticism.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a form of diet or renunciation, where you communicate with something very specific, and you learn the essence or the way to communicate with that being. And all of these are different powers you can learn from. And so you have rituals and dietas all over the world. So it's instead of orthodoxy, it's orthopraxy. So what's right practice? And then you give a situation. And yeah, I love what you say about full sincerity. It's the posture.
Yep. Many types of dietas. In my book, Rainforest Medicine, Preserving Indigenous Science and Biological Diversity in the Upper Amazon, there's a whole chapter on the dieta. And it's good to study the dietas from different regions to see how, to understand that basically the essence of the dieta is some kind of practice that trains one, gives one the opportunity to focus one's concentration. So that it becomes piercing, like if you're like moving a magnifying glass until you finally get it and it channels the light of the sun, it can start a flame. It's kind of, that's like a metaphor to look at it.
And that's how you get the visions, right?
The dietas, yeah, you have to do the dietas to get the good visions. In the beginning, like when you ayahuasca, yeah, it gives like the beginner's luck. You get like, you can have like a certain amount of ceremonies where you have amazing visions. But I've seen this happen. It's the phenomenon that the people keep drinking more and more, but maybe, and then they don't have visions anymore. A lot of people I've met that they drink and never have visions because they're not following the teachings that the medicine is showing them, and they're not following a dieta. They don't have a maestro that can see what kind of dieta is best for them. So that way, and so you have to do certain dietas, and then you can see visions again. It opens up.
I would love to know if you can circle back around this after this question, how you experience animism or how you experience
okay.
being a yahe drinker.
Well, it's a serious joke. We have to laugh at it too, and also the animism, the unified perspective, kind of, it's not the easy way out, but it also can allow us to relax more, because it's easy, sometimes life can get too intense, and if we're all connected and everything's one, there's nothing to be achieved, really, you know what I mean? So like some people are too hard, they gotta achieve something or stuff. It's good to soften the grip a little bit, and then but the spirits of nature, they come to you in dreams and in visions. When you drink the yahed, that opens up nice. But they're also reclusive too, a lot of spirits. So it's not like, it's like fake it till you make it kind of thing, we know that all these spirits exist. Maybe we're not seeing them all the time, but we know that they exist. So that's your question.
Yeah. So following on from that, what is the ayahuasca and yahe seem to be known to treat pretty much everything. If you go online, it can cure all sorts of things. What do these medicines help with from your perspective? What is the purpose of them?
Yeah, a lot of people get light and they want this, the first cups, they want this for everybody, and it's not that easy, basically. And, for the most part, ayahuasca doesn't heal everything. And people have to be aware that this is attributing way too much. Here's so many people go, the mother told me, the ayahuasca told me, the medicine told me, the divine told me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm serious. That's just, we have to be, for one, according to the Sequoia, the spirit of the ayahuasca vine, the Yahemopai, they're kind of mid-range spirits. They can only show you so much. And the proper varieties of Yahe that the Sequoia zone are through, powerful, lifelong devotional, paths. And in many ceremonies are able to bring heavenly spirits into these vines, so that these vines have much more pinta, much more power, and to work as healing agents. A lot of the regular vines that are grown in Hawaii, people don't have like an ancestral connection with them. They only have the Yahe Mopai, which are the spirits that are inside the Yahe. And there's a very like mid-level spirit that can only take you that far, not that far. So it's just like, it's really important like to be humble in the sense that like, yeah, the medicine speaks to people, you know, and that's fine. But people shouldn't like say that, because it makes him feel like I'm more special than you. When you say, it spoke to me, and the other guy's like, but it didn't speak to me.
What's the positive if people do drink?
So basically what I'm saying is, yeah, okay.
Sorry.
Is that it's important to be much more humble about this, and also to try to. But you know, that's always the case when you first meet someone. It's all super excited, and then like, you know, you start realizing the true colors are exciting, yeah, for sure. But it's like, but also when you see it for what it is, you have a better understanding, and you save yourself from getting deceptions too, or disillusion, you know. But basically, the ayahuasca is really good for like psychosomatic problems, for like trauma, because it's like people say you can like go through like 20 years of psychotherapy in the night, you know. So it's good for resolving trauma, because it makes you face different like traumas that you are very challenging for most people to face. It's so much easier to sweep them under the rug, but guess what? They're under the rug. They're not. They're still there. You know, they're just out of sight, out of mind, kind of thing. So it's going to accumulate, and it holds people back from their true potential. So the medicine.
So I find it very interesting, because before the Yah ceremony, we did an apotheosis, our retreat at High Existence. You gave a trauma workshop.
Totally.
To help us preparation for the
Apotheosis retreat is very well planned retreat.
So, yeah, like we're very interested in trauma and healing, and we think it's an integral part of spiritual development. Have you got any case studies where you've seen people drink Yahe, resolve like very difficult traumatic events?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Anything that comes to mind?
One woman that came here, she walked in on crutches, and we drank the medicine with her. She drank and started crying all night. She just cried and cried and cried. The next morning she knew that she could walk. She just tried, and she got up, and she didn't need her crutches. She was dancing. She left her crutches here. She left dancing, skipping, and she told, you know, basically it was like some really traumatic family catastrophe that she had. There's no way she could even try to get herself to remember or talk about it. And after that happened, and she was fairly well-to-do and been to many doctors and clinics, and no one could get her, and she just had to wear crutches. They couldn't find anything wrong with her. They'll pinch this, pinch that, and but she couldn't walk without crutches. She'd fall. And she left dancing. Many other, that's just one of many. Yeah.
So I'd like to switch topics for a second. I'm really curious about your day-to-day life with the sequoia. What did it look like, and what kind of things did you get up to?
I lived with the sequoia between 1995 and the year 2000, but specifically with Don Cesario Piaguaje and his wife Doña Joaquina. And I lived with them. They lived kind of separate from their family, his son Cesar and their family, lived just downriver. So I just pretty much lived only with the old man and his wife. So, but I got to little by little know all the sequoia, because I collaborated on a project to help them recuperate a significant portion of their ancestral homelands in the Blackwater Wilderness Lagoon country between Ecuador and Peru, Lagartococha, a place that they call Pilquilla, Black Cayman Lakes. And so we used to organize these exodus-style voyages and bring many sequoias down there. And that was a pretty fun adventure. And so I got to meet pretty much all the sequoias. But I lived mainly with Don Cesario. Like day-to-day life was always lots of errands all the time, like carrying water, washing the dishes, chopping wood, doing gardening, hunting to get food, like doing agriculture all afternoon, and then going hunting to get food for dinner, basically. Back then it was different, as I was saying. If you forgot something, that was it. I used to bring a lot of grains and food, quinoa and grains, because in Ecuador there's good grains. But back then there was a boat every 3 weeks coming up the river. Now there's like 5 boats a day, and the roads are just an hour. They go all the way to San Pablo village, and they want to plow a road through all the way down to Sewaya village. It's a very different sequoia territory today. Some of the elders have died. Some The really proper ones are still alive, fortunately.
And this mentor of yours, like, what was he like?
Don Cesadio, beautiful man of men, a great man. Someone who truly understands the universal cosmic way of life. Most indigenous people are still very in survival mode and think only about their families and themselves. Don Cesadio is someone who, a very virtuous being, that very selfless human being that has helped a lot of people. He's a very famous healer in the area. People come from up and down the river all over the place to get healed. I mean, he's a healer. He's a master Yahe drinker and master healer. Proper.
So,
his ancestral name, or his Yahe name, is Camporasa. In my book I read about him. Camporasa, which means fragrant medicine bark. We became great friends. He adopted me as a son. He'd call me, I would call him Haket, which means father. Yeah, Mama Kit. He'd call me my son. We had a good time. We drank. And then, I started helping him. First, basically, the way I became friends with him was I was invited by my friend who was working, Manuel Payares, who's working to accomplish the project to help them recuperate their ancestral lands on the Peruvian-Ecuadorian border. So I went on one of those Exodus voyages with them, and Cesario and I became great friends off the first bat. And he invited me to stay at his house. We stayed at his house a bit, and we started talking. I just finished working with the Waurani for 5 years, and he's like, "You don't know how to make the arrow poisons?" Like, I actually do. He's like, "What?" I'm like, "You have to show me." So I had to leave. I said, "I'll come back and I'll show you." And he said, "Bring me a Waurani blowpipe, and I'll make you something." I was like, "Cool." I had a Waurani blowpipe, so I brought it for him. I figured if we're gonna go make the hunting arrow poisons, we need the blowpipe to go practice it. So I brought him the blowpipe. We made the hunting poison, how I learned with the Waurani. It worked very effective. We shot a wild boar, ran to the room, just dropped dead. He couldn't believe it. He was blown away. And we made a super strong poison. And we'd go hunting with that and catch all kinds of animals, blow them, shooting birds, guans.
So cool.
Yeah. And then he made me a Yahe drinking crown. A nice crown. And then he's like, "You want to drink Yahe?" I was like, "Sure." And we started drinking Yahe. And we drank lots of Yahe together over the 5-year period. I became his cook, the Yahe cook. So I cooked for him a lot of times when people came sick. They needed Yahe to be cooked. There's no refrigerator. You always have to make it fresh. So I'd go out and cook for him.
I've heard little bits about the cooking process and how you underwent this education in Yahe. What was the structure like to actually become an actual cook approved by the Sequoia?
Unfortunately, there wasn't many other people around. None of the youth would come, and it was maybe really sad. None of the youth was still kind of too crude, the whole situation with the encounter with the missionaries that a lot of the Sequoias have gone evangelists and the expanding colonization frontier and stuff. Now there are more youth interested because the colonization frontier seems a bit more manageable. It's not going anywhere now. It's in the beginning when it first impacted, it's like, "Oh my God, where's this going?" And people get used to it. It's not going anywhere. But a lot of the Sequoias are going out to study in the schools, and now it's close to get to Shushufindi. A lot of them go out once a week, and so there's not so much fear. And also they see that there's rights for indigenous people. They got their territory, so they sort of kind of accept the colonial frontier more. And that's one of the reasons why I thought the youth in the past didn't drink, because it's so intense. To face, everything, it makes you face. They get too freaked out. But now a lot of youth are drinking it now. It's really cool. A lot of youth are drinking now, more than before. But in those days, there was no one else out there drinking but myself. And then Luke Weiss, that came with me there. I just happened to be the fortunate, bag of bones that met him and brought him down, but I can't take any credit for any of that. And to me, I'm overjoyed that through my rummaging, meanderings, I was able to encounter Luke and find him, and he came down. He lives there now 18 years or 25 years more. He's married there and has Sequoia family, and is helping the Sequoias in really beautiful projects with the more remote Sequoia tribes in Peru, that to have them get their territories recognized, because there's other Quichua Indians and other mestizo colonists that are in the area that are more organized and trying to take their land legally. So I'm not sure where the process is, but they're doing really tremendous work. But Luke and I were down there, and Luke was more into hunting, and I was more into the cooking, the yahe. So he'd go hunting, I'd cook the yahe a lot. And but basically the old man, like, you unfortunately, like, oftentimes they learn, the master's like the guinea pig of the cook, because like if you cook it wrong, they get a headache, the shaman, like yahe drinker, or their body hurts, and then little by little he tells you what you did wrong, and then finally you get it down right, and then when you cook it properly, the master opens up the sky and it all rains in trillions of colors, and it's pretty beautiful. It's fantastic, beyond words can describe. And then the master can sing all night and he's happy, and you cooked it right. There's a lot of different subtle nuances to cook it properly. And in my book I read about that. I think it's called chapter 5 maybe, or 4. It's one of the chapters in there is called Preparing a Proper Brew, and it outlines very specifically how to prepare it properly.
For me, it was such a synchronicity. You talking about Luke, because I lived with him for about a month in Ecuador, and I didn't know you introduced him to the Sequoia, or at least you were a comrade on this path, and he would tell me stories, because he lived with Don Star for 10 years before he met his wife. And
what kind of stories did he tell you?
He loved telling the one rule: you don't leave the hut.
Oh yeah.
Because he had so many stories of people just running into the Amazon and like feeling no fear anymore and finding everything beautiful. He said, then you had to run after them and bind the feet and hands and put them on his back. And Luke is like, he's a strong guy. Like he's definitely a hunter.
Yeah.
And told me stories about jaguar and sloth and camping trips, and
it's more relaxed down there now. When I first got there was much more savage colonization, frontier reality. Everything was scarce, hard, difficult, far away, and there's constantly like machete fights with people chopping themselves over women at the neighboring colonist, settlements where we had to go get supplies. It was just it was insane back then. It seems more relaxed now for some reason, and more easy, but still it's the Amazon anytime, and fucking the scorpion tail rises and you don't know where it's going to land, man. It's the place of ecstasy and tragedy. You have to learn, that's the land of the gods. That's why a lot of people, they go down there with their own agenda, and they're not humble enough, and they get tangled up and cause more karma for themselves. It's happening right now as we speak. Foreigners that go now because it's so much easier accessible, it's dangerous, it's complicated, and it's also sacred and beautiful. And you have to know a lot to maneuver appropriately in those areas, and that to know that a lot, you have to basically, be very, very sensitive, or have been, have many years of accumulated experience. And so I see a lot of people going down there, young Americans that want to drink the yahe or find enlightenment, or searching, but they go there not humble enough. They bring their own agendas. Like whether it is to drink yahe for free, or to make money off of drinking it, or to meet the shaman or become the shaman's, lover, or whatever the fuck their stupid ass agendas are. They want to be special and part of destiny and part of a story, part of a legend, part of a prophecy. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of havoc that I've seen people create. A lot of havoc, and I'm not. I wish the Sequoia well on how to maneuver that. And I talked to them a little bit, but they're also headstrong, and unfortunately, there's people just kind of learn the hard way. That's what, and then they don't even learn from the hard things that happen, and they just ignore the trauma that gets stacked up, over stacked up, over stacked up, over stacked up. More layers of trauma gets stacked up, and people hold on to shit, and then people get sick and die. And fuck, it's beautiful, but it's tragic out there. And but it's more beautiful than tragic, because it's the Amazon, and it's the crib of God, basically, down there. You know, that's where the spirits weave their magic. And not all the spirits are auspicious. Some of them are harmful, but even the harm-bearing ones, they cause havoc and death and outbursts of aggression and violence. But it's all for things to try to get back on balance towards the purple flame of love. Yep.
And I've gone through a lot as a Goya. Missionaries, rubber, now oil, palm.
Oil companies are up and down the river all over the place now. And it's a whole new time out there.
Do you think the eye can heal that trauma, the generational trauma? That's
it gives them the energy to see the value of their culture and to receive energy to live their traditional way of life if they choose to. A lot of the youth are seeing that the colonial frontier is bullshit. They got the picture. There's not that much exciting there, and they're finding that their culture is more exciting. And so, yeah, they'll live with strength. Indigenous people usually don't process trauma like we do in the West, like trauma workshops. They receive the pain and just use their bodies as a silent vehicle for the processing of it over time. And some are better at releasing it than others. And there's a lot of pent-up aggression. Oftentimes people are holding on to stuff. They can let it loose on the innocent bystander. It's a complicated mess down there. And that also makes for the different families to be very individualistic, and there's not much of a community. There is community activities because they're kind of obliged, because they have a community structure. And there's mingas where the community goes and helps, and each person to plant a cornfield is too much work alone. So the community goes, you'll do the cornfield, and the hosts provide the chicha, drink, and then they go from village. So they help each other make agriculture like that, right? But for the most part, they're very individualistic and self-centered, indigenous people, and there's only far and few proper. And those are the old school shamans that are the ones they show the way of the unified perspective, that we don't have to fall into the fear of the limited reality, that there's just enough. There's not enough for everyone. That's why we have to only think of ourselves as survivalist mode. The old shamans show that it's unlimited perspective, but also to do that we have to be more moderate and practice virtues of moderation and compassion and kindness. And then if we can harness those virtues of moderation, compassion, and self-restraint, those three things, then they say then we can tap into the unlimited worldview where there's enough for everybody. And the elders, they show that. Don Society showed me that path very clearly, a path of universal love. Even though it's very orthodox in many regards and traditional, he also, through the channel of his very, very, very traditional way of life as a Yahe drinker, he demonstrated very advanced spiritual notions of non-duality. And that to me was one of the most profound lessons to learn, to see see someone who lives like that, someone who could easily hate the West outsiders because of all we've lost so much land and population because of illnesses and the colonial frontier, but still know each person is judged by the quality of their heart, the content of their heart and their character, not true proper sage. Unfortunately, most of this, he's the only one like that. There's other elders. The handful of elders are like that. And then the youth, they have a little certain touches ahead. There's a collection of youth that are drinking now the medicine. I have the faith that they're gonna maintain that spirit, because it's and there's always something. When something goes up, something goes down. When something goes down, something goes up. That's the mathematics of the spiritual reality. And so energy is not created or destroyed, it's transformed from one form to another. The Yahe traditions show, and they very, very much coincide with quantum physics in that regards, and the teachings of Tao, as that. And so we have to. It invites the participant to open up to the truth that the soul and our spirits have to undergo many, many different experiences in this life. And so it arms people, the drinking the Yahe, with tools to deepen their spirits and deepen their souls and deepen their understanding and deepen their set of experiences that helps people to cope more appropriately with life.
We recently ran our first ever high existence retreat, Apotheosis, a couple of weeks ago. And one of the most memorable experiences of that retreat was a yahe ceremony in which you helped facilitate and oversee to make sure that it was done with proper integrity and according to the traditions of the sequoia. One of the things I noticed amongst participants was that they had visions of nature and of plant life and felt more connected to the jungle surrounding them. So I wanted to ask, do you think re-enchanting nature and the earth is an important project in the modern world? And do you think that yahe or psychedelics in general can help with this?
Oh, of course. That's one of the most critical reasons for the use of these entheogenic plants. And theo is to discover the God within. So it helps. Oftentimes people see nature, it's like they can't see the true inherent. They see it's beautiful. They love it for its beauty, but these plant medicines, when done appropriately, can have people have such an intimate encounter of the enchantment, of the magic of nature, that it changes their relationship with nature forever. And we need people desperately the world over, everywhere, to reconnect with nature, because when you're connected with something, we care for it. If we care for it, we're going to live a way of life that's beneficial for what we care for, not, and that's a phenomenon. We see a lot of Westerners that are like, they have all the right stuff, they know all the right sayings, but they're very still disconnected. It's all about like buying more stuff or like consuming. People have to crack the code of consumerism. That's why the golden virtues of all the sacred traditions are moderation, self-restraint, and kindness. Compassion, kindness, moderation, self-restraint. And so people have that way we can tap into the unlimited worldview.
You've obviously had a lot of experience working with many different people with different trauma, and what would you personally say to a young person who felt lost and needed guidance?
Not to take it too personal, for one. Like, try to see that this is not their true being, that it's just a shadow that's like engulfing them like a spider web, and so that their true being is divine and sacred and connected with the cosmos. And to know that, fake it till you make it. Not like first separate yourself from that, because it's a false fear of being real. It's an illusion, and it's a game too. People like want to feel like because they're not getting enough attention, so like they want to feel like this like poor me mentality to attract, a victim mentality to attract like support or someone to care for you. And so we have to like peel off the layers to find a true unadorned self, which is a being of love and a being of self-sufficiency, a being that can ask for help when needed, but also help himself for the most part, and even more so, extend a helping hand to others and start helping others and do many acts of kindness each day, so that and they can start peeling off the layers, and then seek out all the different methods that can help them. If it has therapy, coaching, life coaching, change of diet, nutrition, yoga, if it's be sports, peer groups that are auspicious, positive, art, creative avenues, and little by little be patient with the process and nurture their spirits, and then the resources, pray for the resources, spiritual resources that they need to help them pass through that maze that they're going through until they can break through the other side, which will be an agonizing experience. But once they break through, they'll realize how necessary it was. No matter how agonizing it was, they'll see how necessary it was. And then when they've made it to the to the shores of safety, of the golden shores of safety, they've crossed over the tumultuous waters of that crisis situation in their life, they'll be able to help others do the same. Right?
That's it.
Yeah.
You got it. Beautiful.
Ayahuasca and yahe is infamous for being quite difficult at times emotionally, and people have reported to have visited hell dimensions. I was speaking to you yesterday, and I asked you if you had many bad experiences on yahe, and you said not that many. So I was wondering, what do you think about when people tell you that they've visited hell or had a really bad experience? Do you think that it's always beneficial? Do you think that it's always doing something good? And what advice would you give to someone who...
It's very rare that people actually visit hell. It's more metaphorically speaking. Mm-hmm. There's an old story of a sequoia shaman who's a very advanced shaman. He could put a black tunic on and he discovered that hell does exist. And it's a deep ocean on the other side where people who suffer, they go there to purify their sins. People who have caused sinners go there. Their souls are sent to suffer so they can rectify those their maldoings. And so, but for the most part, people are not experiencing hell. But the ayahuasca, that's why it's related to the snake, the anaconda, because what it does, it constricts. So it squeezes the body. In that moment of constricting the body, it's actually, the body is releasing itself of toxins on multiple levels. Spiritual, psychic toxins, psychosomatic toxins, molecular toxins, different bodily cellular toxins, traumas in certain parts of the body. The ayahuasca is squeezing out, so it's agonizing, right, in that moment. So that you can call it hell, but in actuality, it's a healing, cathartic process that you're undergoing, and what that is doing is that it's releasing the body of any level of, or any type of trauma, basically. And so, because that's why trauma is hard to release, because it's agonizing the releasing process. So for the most part, what happens? Nobody releases the trauma because it's all swept under the rug. It's too challenging unless you have a good therapist, or like you're really trying, man, you bring shit out, you want to focus this. But for the most part, people become very good at burying it under the rug and acting like it doesn't exist. And then almost the majority of people in the world live like that. Then they start taking pills, antidepressants, and medications, and you get these old guys and people, like dangling that's been dead ages ago, on medications and all kinds of crazy. And they could have been at that same age without medications if they had proper guidance along the way when they first started getting off skelter a little bit.
So you mentioned sinning, and you said sin.
Sinning, yeah.
And you mentioned proper guidance and being on the right path. So what is being on the wrong path to you, and what is the right path? Like how, like we don't live in the rainforest. Dietas are possible, difficult, especially if you have to work at the same time and all that. Like, what are some ways we can improve our spiritual condition?
Basically, from my limited understanding of all this, Master Ni, I love it, and from the traditions of Tao, says the quickest way to attract helping spirits is by accumulating every day many acts of selfless service, acts of kindness, acts of aid, helping people in secrecy every day, at least 3 a day. That's the way. That's the quickest way to communicate with our auspicious spiritual powers. Because when we help someone in that moment, we are uniting our whole being and all our virtues with all the virtues of the universe. It's beautiful to think that we can do that by helping someone selflessly and spontaneously, responding to an opportunity. The classic, an old lady with her grocery bags, you just run and help across the street and you're gone. That's like one of the more classic. And then any kind of animals, helping the innocent, helping the selfless. That's the most authentic way, I think, of spiritualizing cultures, is having people loosen up, be more generous, more solidarity oriented, more service oriented, selflessly. That's the start right there. And the second thing is to learn how to concentrate, make our work a spiritual art, no matter what it is. So it's a mindful, contemplative meditation where we join our body and our mind to whatever it is we're doing, and do it with love. And if you see that you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing, and after a while your heart's heavy because it's not the right place, don't have be strong to make the change towards something that you want to feel, that you feel is more suitable according to what you feel for you is right.
Jonathon, earlier in the conversation you mentioned that hell is a real place. How does this conception of hell compare to the Christian conception, your conception, and what kind of sin could land you there, and is it a place that you would reside permanently or temporarily?
Well, I know if there's a legend, a Sequoia legend that talks about that, and there's a commentary to the legend, but hell is not like in the religious sense, like inside the earth there's like a fire, purgatory. The indigenous cosmology looks at inside the earth as a heaven, inside the water as a heaven, inside the mountains as a heaven, a more holographic universe of things that's like within the part, within one part can be the whole, and that it repeats itself everywhere, so that everything's within everything. Very much like the traditions of Tao that shows the Tai Chi symbol, the yin and the yang, the classic yin and yang, with a dot of yin in the yang and a dot of yang in the yin. But other more esoteric schools of Tao show that that dot of the yin with the yang is also the Tai Chi. Get it? And each dot is a Tai Chi, so it's infinite yin with and yang coming out on both sides from nowhere to eternity, basically. But and so with that said, the legend is a legend of Kenquero. It's called. There was a shaman named Kenquero, and he died suddenly. But he was a shaman. Basically, the main, like, there's a Sequoia story that kind of exemplifies this. And also, it's also important to note that in all the sacred scriptures, they highly differentiate the difference between good and bad. They highly differentiate and make note the difference between good, wrong, and right, good and evil. That's part of every fundamental spiritual education. So in this case, so basically Kenquero, he harmed people by killing them spiritually, practicing sorcery. He would kill people, but he also healed people. So he was good because he could heal, but he also killed people spiritually. This guy Kenquero. And what happened was that, well, I'll finish the story, but there's a Sequoia saying that says, if you find someone stealing something from your house, offer them a meal. But if you discover that a father, that your own son has become a sorcerer and is killing people, then it's the father's responsibility to go kill their son. So it's showing how, like, small crimes have to be, or like, transgressions like stealing something, which is small time transgression, is retributed by showing a better way, being generous. Hey, have a meal. There's a story that's, of course, saying some guy came home and found out some fellow was in his house, like, looking through stuff, stealing. So he walked in right at that moment and said, "Oh, hey, let me invite you to a meal." And then, "I'm just about to have some lunch." And then the guy's like, "Oh, sure." And he goes out to take a pee. He says, "I'm going to go take a pee," and then boom, disappears. But that leaves an impact on them, that they would react to show a better way. But if they go so far as to already killing people, then it's the father's responsibility to kill his own son, because he's also responsible for not educating his son properly. That a father should never let their son become a murderer, basically, So it shows the level of responsibility is, traditional Sequoia way of being, which is now pretty much gone, but that's something from the past, historic, information. And even till today, they're very much that way, especially on pardoning and showing a better way with small transgressions. That's a very important way of the life of the Sequoia. They're always trying to show a better way. So, basically, Kenquero, when the Sequoia believed that when someone dies, especially the shamans, they go to the house of God's wife. Her name is Ripao. And above the door of the Maloka, there's a nest that's like a beehive, but it's a swarm of hummingbirds. And inside her house, the lodge is a hammock. The dead person goes, and she brings him into the lodge and lays him in the hammock. And the hummingbirds come out, swarm around the soul, and in that moment determine the quality of the energetic caliber of the person's soul. If the person lived a life of upright integrity, that person is sent to the other side of this river, where it's the happy hunting grounds, where all the Sequoia ancestors lived, like to do on the earth, but in a much more liberated way, with much more energy, much more abundance. On the backs of the river in heaven, the Malokas, all the ancestors live there. It's this paradise of spiritual immortality. But in this case, Kenquero had harmed people. It was determined that he'd actually done wrong by killing people. He'd killed people. So his soul was sent to the other side of this big ocean, where there's a place where souls are meant to suffer, to be purified of having done wrong, so that they can be cleansed through the process of suffering, and then they're released to probably reincarnate in a different form. And so basically, the story goes that at that moment, it's an amazing story. It's in my book. Do we have time to finish the story? I might as well just summarize it, executive summary, because it's in my book. But and I don't want to get too sidetracked. The story is very beautiful, but in the process, when he's being judged, one thing that he did, Kinkero, because he was a shaman, he had these certain powers. After dying, he returned to earth and he hid behind the tree spiritually. He made these chirping calls like a bird, and he was able to bring his wife and his son to heaven. And when they got to Rapao, was like, "How are you here? You're not dead. Only dead people can come here. How can you make it here?" And so when she sent her down to the river to get water. And when she was coming back from the river, that's right in that moment when the soul was determined the soul did wrong, it was going to be sent to the other side to suffer. In that moment, a cloud, dark clouds and thunder and lightning came over, and the trail before it closed up with pure spines, vines with spines. And she got so scared she dropped the pot of water from her power has clay pots in her house. And right when she dropped the pot of water, it broke on the ground and turned into this big anaconda. It was limp, slowly slithering off this big weighted anaconda, just slithering off. After the soul was sent away, then the sun came out again and the spines opened, so she got back, and so Rapao said, "Look, you can't be here." She said, "Your husband was sent to suffer because he'd done bad. But you are good and your son is good, and we're going to send you back now." And so he was sent back. First the white king vultures, the pupuri, they flew down to earth to find the trail. When they were down here, one of the vultures got caught in a hunting trap, and you had to yank the cord out of it and fly back to heaven. When they got to heaven, they're heaven people transformed as vultures, king vultures. They thought that they got bit by a snake. So they said, "You're from the earth. What's on his? He's got bit by a snake, right?" They're saying, "Oh, that's an earthly thing, and we don't have that here." But yeah. She had a sewing needle in a shawl. She took it out and she tightened it. The cord and loosened the cord, tightened the cord. When she tightened it, he would scream, "Ouch!" When she loosened it, he'd relax, and he would say, I'm getting it out." Like she was like going along with the theater, the theatricalness of it all, because to them it was all in song, and it was like in heaven it's a whole different phenomenon. So eventually she unloosened the cord. They thought it was a snake, but it was just a piece of string from a hunting trap. And then in chapter 9 in my book, lineage holders of the tradition, deep forest and urban, you see the artwork of the woman and her son flying down back to earth on the backs of the white king vultures, and then they're giving the matipu, but they call it the matiyai, the scepter, the ceremonial scepter that's held in the ceremony that we had. That at first was called the matiyai, the heaven jaguar. She said, with this you can do gardening, because you have a husband, and hunt, but share the food and use it in moderation. Don't overdo it. Never be careful that no one knows, ever sees about this. And so they, with that stick, the matiyai, they point it in the forest. Boom! The forest would just be clear little plot and be like agriculture. And then they put it to the monkeys. Boom! And some monkeys would drop down and they cook the monkeys and eat. And but other sequoias were, how does his mother and her son, like young son, live way out in the wilderness, always have garden and meat? And so they kept asking him, how do you do it? How do you do it? They never told, but one day they got him drunk and they showed the matiyai, they had in a clay pot. And he said, finally showed him, and the next morning there's a hole in the pot. And they saw a jaguar come running out and run up into heaven. From that matiyai, now they call it the matipu, the heaven rising, is part of the ceremony of Yahé. So then that myth is part of the ceremony of Yahé, because from the matipu, they make the matiyai, they make the matipu, that's the scepter for the ceremonies. And so supposedly, last to conclude, is that the Sequoia told me that there was a shaman of old that was so curious about this legend that he wanted to prove for himself if there's truly a spot where the souls suffer. So he started drinking strong Yahé with that intention to see that, and he would wear a black tunic. And sure enough, he was able to go when he saw that it does exist. Yep.
So, there's a lot of information in that myth. What's the moral of that story you just told?
Well, the myths are a lot of, beyond morals, some are morals, but they're also encoded wisdom. Like, for one thing that we have in there, it shows, like at its most basic, it shows that, when, we have to live a life of uprightness, because when we die, nothing can be hidden. whatever stains or enriches our souls is all made apparent after death to the spirits. And that it shows how if we do harm, we'll have to repay for it one way or another. People think that we can get away with harm because they're in powerful situations and there's a system that protects them. There's governments and armies and they got weapons or whatever, but it shows that at the time of death there will be a judgment, basically, according to the Sequoia belief. What's interesting too is that the commentary that the elders say is that there was a shaman who actually was so curious about this phenomena that devoted himself to thick drinking, if you had to see if this was really true. He'd wear a black tunic and he would go there and you could see. He finally went and he saw that it's true. The people that live wrong lives, in particular kill, ruthlessly, or cause harm to others, they have to repent those sufferings.
I think there's a story of the Buddha where in one of his past lives he also visited the hell realms.
Oh yeah, and there's like in the Taishan Canyon Pian, which is a very Taoist classic. It's Lao Tzu's third book. Lao Tzu, the great sage the author of the Tao Te Ching, is attributed also to the Hua Hu Ching, and then the Taishan Canyon Pian, which is called the treatise, the treatise on response and retribution. And then there's a bunch of books, and there it talks very, very clearly about the good and wrong and qualities of like the wrongdoing and different, goes through all of the, sickness. It says what sickness truly is. Sickness are like different perverted ways of being, not so much physical sickness, spiritual sickness. It talks about that in that book. But also there's a part where there's stories, moral stories. And there's one story where this guy really wants to learn Tao, and so he minds the master, says, "Master, please teach me the Tao." He says, he tells him to go transform all his wealth into gold, like sell everything he has and buy some gold and get it made into two goldfish, and meet me in like several months. And he comes, sure enough he does. He's brave enough to sell all his stuff, make two fish. They go out on the boat. He says, "Okay, let's see if the fish can swim." And the guy's trembling. He puts one fish, it sinks because they're made of gold. All right, now the next fish, he trembles, sinks. They go out to make it to the island, and supposedly he gives them some pills, some white pills, and they go into this like underworld inside the island, and they see hell. He shows them, and there's the devil, and there's all the wrongdoers, the lawyers in this world that were corrupt, are the lawyers of the devil. It's just like a societal structure, like there's police, lawyers, and different levels of like hierarchy in society, like in our world, is there too. But all the wrongdoers are the work for the devil. And so then they go back out, and on the boat he's like, "How come you showed me hell?" He said, like, basically the master said that in order to see heaven, you have to know hell in order to truly help people. And he became an accomplished master. He did. Yeah. So that's a part of the training, is seeing, what we call hell, but hell is so multifaceted. At its most extreme state is like this realm where the soul suffers after death for its wrongdoings, and then there's like karma, which is like retribution, where we suffer in this world for our wrongdoings. And then there's like, hell under the ayahuasca experience, where the ayahuasca tightens us, constricts us so that we can, but it's an exfoliating, it's a detoxifying, purging process, but it's agonizing, so that's like a hell. So there's like multiple aspects, but in general, hell, I guess is really like a constriction process, but the purpose of it is for detoxing and aligning, and after that, the outcome is that whatever went through the process is purified and thus made more clean and more strong. So it has its place. It's all part of the vision of everything going back to the same source that it came from.
So would you say that source is also the source of Chinese medicine?
Yeah, because like the Tao is so proper about that. All the Taoist classic poems, they talk about the source, how things come from this hidden mystery and go back to that hidden mystery. But one of the things that I've done that I'm really interested in is the similarities between traditional Tao culture, the integral way of Tao, and the different aspects of Amazonian tribal ways. And like one, for example, there's a few that are very interesting. One is the belief in the Winya Pai. In the Sequoia, they call them the Winya Pai, the always new people. Every moment is like a new life, the divine immortals. In Tao, they call them the Xians, which every moment is a new life. They're in a constant state of renewal. And these are the pillars of these spiritual traditions, like the Sequoia dress the way they do with their cross necklaces, crowns, tunics, because that's in the vision see that the Winya Pai dress like that. And they try to be like them. The old master shamans exemplified that, always being present, ready to serve. If you can be ready to serve and give of your essence to anybody, you're tapping into the unlimited life, not the limited life. There's two main paths: the limited life, where there's not enough to go around and there's a survival mentality, or the unlimited life. There's plenty for everybody, and everything's within everything. The indigenous sacred cosmology, the holographic universe, the animistic worldview, right? The unlimited way of life of unity, or the limited way of life of separation, of duality.
One of the fundamental tenets seems of animism is reciprocity, right?
For sure, if we're going to harvest something, and we know that plant is a living being, I'm not going to go to your house and take something from your house without saying, Martin, I'd like to make, you have this that I need, I can offer you this in exchange. Doesn't it feel better that if I come and ask you for something that you have that suits my needs, I come with something to offer in exchange for that, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where the whole barter system comes in. Our commerce comes from that, where you need something, you buy it, right? But there's always an exchange. And the indigenous cultures are very much about that. The animistic worldview is very much like that. It's the cross. And in the runes, that represents a positive endeavor coming forth. It's the balance. So it's a treque, they call it the treque, the trade. So you go to a plant, like the mother ayahuasca, you want to harvest her. This has a spiritual owner. It's not just a plant. So we're going to harvest of her flesh. We have to offer prayer. We have to offer tobacco. We always like to offer rolled tobaccos, and you put a little tobacco on there. Tobacco is usually the classic offering but sometimes incense. You can smudge the vines, or also sometimes you can tell the vines stories because they like to know what's been going on when people drink them. So you can go relate accounts to the vines of what people have experienced when they drank. So those are ways of reciprocating with, and then with everything that we harvest from nature, we should be grateful for and leave some kind of offer, whether it's a prayer or a physical offer. In this peyote way, for example, when rocks are taken to make a sweat lodge, always when the rocks are taken, prayers have to be made to the river spirits, to the sand spirits, to the rock spirits, and offerings of food have to be left there for those spirits.
Yeah, that's in Indonesia, they put out like little bowls of fruit around the house, but it's like an offering to the other, the non-human, and so the ants don't come into the house, so it's like this treaty. It's like, yeah, we take a bit of your space, we give something back, and that's what they call the spirits. And very wise.
Jonathan, just to ask you a bit of a personal question now. If you were elected into a powerful position in government, what are the main changes you'd like to see in the world?
I just wonder if even in the powerful positions of government, you can actually even make change. I mean, like, there's certain lines, like that's pretty pessimistic. There's certain lines of established order that is working, like national parks or social justice, but it seems so beyond haywire. I'm not even sure if government is the way to do it anymore. Like myself personally, like I wouldn't mind experimenting with it. Like if I was temporarily in a government position, I would immediately try to channel funds and allocate funds to the people in the more rural areas with valuable alternatives, and really influx like alternative medicine, homeopathy, acupuncture, herbologies into rural like areas, as well as like start trainings for permaculture, like make incentives to people start growing, decentralize, and make agriculture again part of a more central organic agriculture. So, and then I think government should be used like in the times of like basically Roosevelt, like there should be like a service where people can enter into the government, not just the army, but and enact like service in reforestation, and also in rescue relief where there's places of like where there's been like catastrophes because of severe climate. There should be like a service of trained core youth that can go, but also a lot of that should be in restoration of ecology. Like, if I had the maximum power, like or something like that, or like really high level power, I would like give much more like protection categories to the protected wilderness areas, and not allow like cattle ranching and stuff like that. I would like basically like dismantle the National Rifle Association, just take that shit out of there, and like make it extremely difficult for people to have guns, and everybody who has a gun has to do backtracked historical work, and at the same time pass psychological exams and moral character exams. Also make it where police have to go through like Buddhist and Taoist training, obligatory, and like have always like guaranteed like cameras that are on 24/7, so that there's not the risk of police becoming corrupted through because if the camera's on 24/7, and then they're like a witness, then everyone's gonna be able to see exactly what they said and exactly what they do, and that's very important. That's starting to happen. And then I would disappear and hope that the little we could do while we were in office would stay in place for at least some kind of time before some other asshole came in and undid it. Basically. But yeah, no, like when it comes to the government, I'm like, I think there's branches within the government that can do positive things, but I'm very pessimistic. I'm almost like Bob Marley, total destruction, the only solution at this point. Because like, even like under Obama, they have like a more diplomatic face, like U.S. politics. But there's a lot of wars that were started there and stuff too, and that are like all in the guise it's like supreme diplomacy. And maybe I'm naive and I don't know anything, but I think that it's really sad to see the level of like trauma that's been caused by like just a bully in a sandbox, acting like a big spoiled brat in a sandbox, like taking away the toys from other people. That's how they act. But in actuality, they're creating like millions of refugees, and it's like it's so beyond insanity. Like the level of conflict that are in certain plaguing certain parts of the planet, and a lot of it is from very reckless handling of global politics, completely insensitive like approaches by the powers that be, basically. So but within like the like for example, one thing Don Pablo said to me, he said to me once, he said, Jonathan, he said, the only thing that can take down the beast of the apocalypse is the apocalypse. In a way, it's kind of liberating because no one person is like the David or against the Goliath anymore. Like, so like since we know we're not going to be the ones, we can't like just don't even stress about the apocalypse. It's going to happen for sure. It's unavoidable, inescapable. There's already been way too much transgressions caused by humanity, and none of it will go unpardoned. Everything, and if it means major purging of the majority of the population, that could possibly be what it means. But we're definitely, according to the information of the masters, going to be undergoing an apocalypse. And so it's only the apocalypse that can take down the beast of the apocalypse. That said, we're liberated now from having to worry about the apocalypse. We can focus on small things that we can see positive change. Now we can focus on the small, where we can transform ourselves, transform our community, help the environment, help animals, many different levels of the universal, everlasting, super omnipotent, wonderful, ever magical, transdimensional, the most coolest thing to do. There's nothing cooler, culture of service. Because what can be cooler than in that moment uniting all your virtues with all the virtues of the multi-universe? you become a god. It's the only way. There's only one way. It's not going to work, having all these crazy crystal bowls or weird earrings dangling off your fucking shirt, some fancy ass design. None of that shit is going to get you anywhere. What's going to help is being selfless and rising to the occasion to find appropriate ways to serve nature, the innocent, wildlife, animals, the Pachamama.
Do you feel it maybe our culture is in many ways very immature, and do you see any hope for a more mature culture where we take more responsibility for our actions and we live a more harmonious, virtuous life in community, in service of this gift that is still alive?
Yeah, I mean, like Western culture is very young, and so it's like a teenager, and it is immature. Like some of the aspects of that are very impulsive. Older cultures, like from the Andes and Ecuador, Asian cultures are much older. They have more experience. They realize that it gets you into trouble if you're impulsive. It doesn't lead anywhere. So we see that they're less reactionary and less impulsive. These older cultures, modern cultures are more reactionary, more impulsive, and you see it on many levels. Like for example, one of the classic aspects of a young, imperialistic culture is it has the tendency of creating a situation, right, to justify its purpose or its motives. Yeah. Like it wants to accomplish this. I want to do that. So they have to create a situation to justify them doing that. And usually the situation has nothing to do with the truth. It creates a situation that gives them the mental justification to go boom. Just for example, a lot of the CEOs of oil companies are Christian evangelists. I read an article in the Reader about this. Christian evangelism is the religion that justifies the wanton destruction of nature because they believe in the apocalypse. And they also believe that the resources were given to humanity by God to use for our well-being. And they believe that all the technology we have it because God wanted it to exist. So if we can go into the Arctic and pillage the oil, it's something that we need because people need to drive their cars to work. So like it totally justifies in their mind's eye that it's okay to go pillage. That's why they're doing it. It's because it's okay in the eyes of God. So it's a very obviously extremely dangerous worldview because that's highly debatable. Like, there's other, like animistic worldviews that we are not superior than anything else, not even the worms, not even the trees, not the birds, that we are here to live together. In fact, at a very ancient ceremony in the traditions of Tao, it says that the elders and that participated in the ceremony, they gathered amongst themselves and they concluded that their truth that they would hold forever was that we are brothers and sisters here on this earth to all living creatures, son of the Heavenly Father and son of an earthly mother.
That's what I call, you have this t-shirt that I really like, it's called All My Relations.
Exactly.
And that's a shamanistic or animistic saying that we're deeply interconnected.
Seven generations.
And that we're so dependent on nature and the other that we sometimes don't understand or find scary, but are so essential to life itself, and that we need to honor all those relationships to remain in alignment ourselves.
Yep. For sure, I hear you, and it's sad to see because I noticed that it happens on the big level and the small level. Like from the big level, they create these I don't know anything, but from what you read and hear, man, supposedly 9/11 was an inside job. And so they create a situation that shows that, that allows them to justify, more, control. Because, in military states, right?
Can that be healed?
And then, you know how it happens? For this, on the individual level, I've seen it happen just recently. Someone that I brought to this, down to the Sequoia territory as a volunteer with me, to work with me, basically created a situation that made me into someone that's not worth working anymore. And really all he wants to do is, in the guise of helping the Sequoias not have to pay anything to drink yahe or, and make some money off it. Now he basically overrode and joined the forces with another guy that I worked with down there. And now they're going to be working with the elders, which is fine. It's cool, but and but also there's like a lot of delicate balances in indigenous communities. Like one of the ways I've always worked with these communities is that like try to be very equanimous, always go to visit different elders' households and not put too much attention on one family. And then there was a project that they tried to do with Delphine's family, and they gave way too much attention to the family. And I told those guys, I advised them, because I knew the project organizer, said, "Oh, but they're the nicest family." I said, "Yeah, well, you don't care who's the nicest family. If you're going to work with the tribe, work with the whole community, give the more rebel guy the opportunity too, the ones you don't feel so good vibes from, because that's how it works down there. Don't focus." And sure enough,
unifies.
Right, it unifies. Well,
water, everybody got the electricity, not one rich family. That's
too much attention was given to that family, and the shaman's younger son. Sadly, Don Delphine's son, his younger son, was murdered, was killed in a stupid drunken fight amongst two sequoias, complaining about why he always had the canoe and the other guy didn't, and they got drunk just a little too much moonshine, and they lifted their machetes, and the guy was dead. And so the Amazon is like that. There's like moments of like insane outbursts of violence, but then it gets peaceful and calm, and like that's one thing that like I've always tried to avoid. But now like one of the things I've always paid the elders like in their families, like within the Ecuadorian standard rates of what things cost, because you have to respect the local economy to a certain, as well. You come with like paying people 20 times more what something's worth. That causes ripples in that economy. And so the way I've solved that situation is, for example, all my tours to the Sequoia territory have been 100% of the proceeds I've given to projects with the Sequoias. I haven't kept that. That's why I haven't been able to do that many, because it's a total volunteer act of service, and I have to focus on my family business. I got a lot of obligations, so I've tried to do like 1 or 2 a year for many years. And when the Sequoias have come here, we've paid them generously and done projects in the community with that too. And I'm trying to keep things always in balance. I think we've done a good job. I don't have any bad relationships with the elders. I'm open. I think I'm the only person with actually a letter of permission from the Sequoia People's Organization to bring people there to drink medicine and to do cultural and scientific tourism and investigation.
Deep honor.
Yeah, they gave me that in a community meeting. I've been through lots of meeting process, discussing very challenging, complicated situations they've been undergoing with when the oil companies were first moving in. We helped to slow down an illegal road. Recently, it was going right next to the old shamans ceremonial lodge. We've done a lot of work, and so it's just funny because like I had a situation recently, like where a guy that I brought down as a volunteer and like charged him very, very humble like contributions to go, like just basically scammed on my connections and like on the old friendship I had with them is now like, and like kind of sometimes it's a quick complaint, or maybe people say that he didn't pay good, but like, and because now people are paying more, and like, but I've always told them, I'm going to pay you guys, if you want to work with me, this is how I work. I pay the Ecuadorian wages for things, the established Ecuadorian prices, a little bit more. But then the proceeds that I generate, I use for projects that benefit the entire village. Like we've done bilingual education books, we built the new ceremony lodge for Don Cesario. We helped Cesario a lot because we believe that by helping the elders, it's an important way to help the entire community. And so, and so it's a delicate thing, and so they're like, oh sure, they're not going to go against it. Sounds good, but sometimes they complain. I've had people complain, and like and then like I've had people say to me, oh, the Sequoias are complaining about you, that you're ripping them off. I say, yeah, but they don't tell you the whole story, because everybody at the end of the day, are becoming more and more materialistic and getting more and more hooked on the money economy, and they want things. And then some people go and pay way too much for something, and then you're doing a good job, but they think, and I've told them, and I've argued in their face, and I'll tell them again, that this is how I work. And so, but this is important. The reason why I'm sharing this is because there's more and more people wanting to work with indigenous people and wanting to have direct contact with the source of these medicines, and I think it's a beautiful thing, but I think it's important to do it in a way that's appropriate. And so it's very important to study like anthropological works like Laura Rival, Trees Tropique by Claude Levi-Strauss. There's a lot of context. The Amazon is the stomping grounds of the spirits and the gods. It's important to understand things from a different perspective, from a deeper perspective, because otherwise, if we go too much with the hidden agendas that we're not even aware of, basically then we can create more confusion than good. So it's the macrocosm within the microcosm. We come from a new impulsive society. Watch out that we don't do the same errors that the leaders did, but they had the power to take it to such the level that they're creating millions of refugees. We're going to do the same thing in one family. That's what I'm saying. We have to be very, very careful when we start taking, like pursuing the medicine path and wanting to work with indigenous peoples, because that's where we can still see the dynamic of things go either way, because it's still like, you hear what I'm saying,
Yeah,
right?
it's backed up by sociology evidence that once equality goes up, male homicide goes up as well. There's a very strong correlation. So if you give one family way more money, other people get jealous, and then we'll be infighting, and it's not a good thing. It's traumatizing.
But it's a phenomenon that I've seen happen many times. It's a phenomenon of appropriation, from the most minimal to the big level. That's what we have to be careful with. That's the message of the Yahe too, to be careful. That's why in the spirit, in the visions of the Yahe, they say don't touch anything. It's about training ourselves to be cautious of appropriation. And let's know that it's a unified worldview. We have everything already. There's no race to become someone, to have our direct connection. If we seek to live a meaningful existence and use our life for higher good and enrich our life experience, we're tired of the city street that we were raised on, we can have that too, but let's find it appropriately, and then it's that much meaningful, that much more meaningful to awaken the Dharma, a path of service where we can enter into a creative form of helping many people alongside ourselves enter into, usher in a new paradigm shift that's going to help alleviate the stresses of the planet and the individual and become closer. It's bringing heaven to earth. It's evolving heaven on earth.
Thank you so much for your work. I really enjoyed the ceremonies we participated in, and it was an honor to have you on our retreat. And you have a beautiful house, so thank you for your invitation as well. You shared a lot of deep wisdom with us today. For me, it's gonna take some time to unpack it all, and
we got the toucan singing with us here on the Osa Peninsula. I'd like to share just a few closing, and then we can, I know you had maybe some concluding questions too.
Yeah, so we've covered like so much ground, as Martin said, and I think I speak for all of us when I say we could ask you like 100 more questions plus, so maybe we can continue the conversation another time. But maybe we can end by you telling us like where we can find out more about you and your projects, things you're working on.
Well, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate the work you guys do too as well. And it's been such a joy to share these moments together, these experiences. Thank you for your confidence, confiding in me. And we hold 2 or 3 times a year an event called the Rainforest Medicine Gathering. And it's always done in a remote wilderness area with cultural adepts. For many years in a row, I brought the Sequoia here to Costa Rica. I'd like to bring him again in the future. And then we've also done trips to Ecuador as well, to visit the Sequoia and other indigenous groups as well too. There's Napo Galeras, the sacred wilderness area, the Haikunti, the source of the spirits, a beautiful wilderness journey. And then there's also opportunities to visit the Waurani too in the future. So these are up on their website. That's rainforestmedicine.net. The next one coming up is July 20th to 30th. I'll write a little piece that you'd mentioned for you, just a few paragraph blurb about that with the link. But that's up on the rainforestmedicine.net. And this is only 2 or 3 times a year that we do these events. For the most part, we run this lodge here, which is Ocean Forest Eco Lodge. We used to be called Guardia de Osa, now we're rebranding as Ocean Forest Eco Lodge. And it's set up as a non-profit organization. We've always given percentages, even though we're oftentimes on slim pickings. Like to say that I've given birth to a dragon baby and it sucks a lot of milk, and we're still teaching it to suckle milk from the stars. But we've always given percentages to projects, and we have all kinds of projects underway. But now we want to really focus more on, with the rebranding of turning this into hopefully the most prestigious yoga center that it can become. We have a beautiful yoga hall right on the beach where the rainforest meets the ocean, and we want to become more available to yoga retreats and run holistic wellness, different kinds of holistic wellness retreats. And we'll always be donating significant percentages to nonprofit works in the 3 fields of rainforest and wildlife conservation. We've been doing a marine turtle conservation project for 12 years now here. Restoration of degraded lands projects, and cultural heritage revalidation. So those are the 3 pillars of the cauldron of the projects that we support. And then, so it's kind of 3 things. There's like the Ocean Forest Eco Lodge, the rainforestmedicine.net, and then the 3rd one is the 4biodiversity.org. The number 4, biodiversity.org. And that's where we put a lot of information about our projects. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. It's been a great honor, and hopefully we can talk again another time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you too.
Thank you for listening to the High Existence Podcast. To get the show notes for this podcast, be sure to visit highexistence.com/rainforest medicine. If you'd like to join us on our next spiritual retreat, which will without a doubt be earth-shatteringly transformational in every possible way, please visit apotheosisretreat.com to apply. Until next time.